So something that keeps popping into my head lately is just how often and I think a lot of us, are kind of drowning out our own thoughts with content, with media, with social media, with YouTube videos, with TV, with books even, with podcasts, anything that you could think of, even music is like just a constant way to not pay attention to what's actually going on in our brain and instead put that attention on something else external to us. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to sit here and say all that stuff is bad at all. But it's just like anything else in life, the sweet spot lies somewhere in the balance. And when you spend too much time consuming, and I kind of touched on this in the last video, it takes away from who you are. And I think sometimes we end up comparing our lives to the people that we see on our phones, and a lot of times they are presenting the best parts of their lives, the most interesting parts of their lives, and when we compare, we're obviously comparing to what we're doing in that moment or what our situation is in that moment. And most of the time, if you're just like on a dopamine rush or even on a dopamine decline after scrolling for a long time or kind of sitting on the couch for too long, our bodies don't react well to that kind of thing. And our bodies want us to be doing stuff, whether that's interacting with people, whether that's moving and like being a little bit active, eating healthier, all these things. And so we get these emotional chemical responses when we don't do those kind of things to feel bad, which then oftentimes drives us to consume media because we feel bad about whatever's going on. And then we consume that media and see that people are actually living their lives, and then we go, well, fuck, I'm not living my life in that way. And then it just kind of like, we end up spiraling a lot of times. But the crazy thing is that a lot of times that leads us to just continue to watch more content. Or you might put away your phone and like not know what to do with yourself. And so this is something that like I've been struggling with a lot often, because how do you find the time to actually understand what it is that you want, actually feel what it is you're feeling, and like identify it and do all of these things that would lead you to a better outcome, to a better life, when the first response is to just pull out the phone and immediately start consuming content. This is a tough thing for me because I'll be cooking, cleaning, driving, whatever it might be, and I'll put on a YouTube video, even if it's just to listen to. Even the thing, I'm sure a lot of you do it, is playing video games and then putting a video on in the background just so you could hear someone talk. It's like this maxing out of stimulation, and then we stop that, and then everything feels empty and bland. And like the idea of sitting with yourself and your own thoughts after something like that feels like one of the most boring things you could do, even though it's really necessary for living your life and like figuring out who you are as an individual, rather than seeing how you fit in like this super complex system that we live in, and like what cog in the machine are you. And so I don't really know, I guess I do know the answers, and that is to spend less time watching and consuming, more time creating, because even though that's not necessarily sitting in silence and like just feeling the feelings and listening to the thoughts, it is an expression of self when you create, in whatever form that takes, whether it's like music or writing or painting, even just like coming up with a good story to tell your friends, whatever it is. All of that is like a way that you can express yourself. And if you actually take the time and put in the effort into thinking about how those things make you feel, the good and the bad, then you'll start to learn about who you are, what in life interests you, and like what you want to move towards. And I don't think that the powers that be, to get conspiratorial on you, I'll probably do this every time I make one of these videos, I don't think the powers that be want us to reflect that much, because as long as we're not reflecting, then we're consuming, whether that's buying something or watching something which then presents you ads. And as long as we are in this unconscious state, then we rely on the systems that exist to then make us feel better about our lives in whatever way, shape, or form that takes. And it's kind of the normal thing now. I think a lot of people are understanding just what kind of an impact this is having, but it really is the norm to just come home after a long day of work, a job that you probably don't like that much, and then first thing you do, because you feel like you deserve it, because you're tired and you can't really use your brain for anything else at that point in the day, is you just watch stuff on your phone, or you watch something on Netflix. You probably eat a dinner that's like not really the best for you, because the last thing you want to do after a long day of work that leaves you drained is cook something, and you either end up like eating a frozen meal or spending money on eating out, which then just like leaves your wallet even more drained and your body less healthy because you're eating all this super processed foods. And I mean, it's all shit that we know not to do. It's like, I can give you a list of 20 things that I know I should be doing and shouldn't be doing to make my life better, but at the end of the day, how many of them do I actually do? This in itself is like a huge thing, because I'm using you guys, I'm using YouTube and making videos as a platform to kind of just air out what I'm thinking. And, it's probably not the most authentic and personal or intimate way of like understanding myself and the things that I want and the things that I want to avoid, but it is something, and it's a step in the right direction. And I'm also hoping that this is enough to kind of jog some people out of their current kind of like habit cycle, to take some more time to reflect, to take some more time to think about where they're at in life and where they want to be. And if you're at where you want to be, then that's fantastic. Good for you. I mean, I wish most of us felt that way, but I get the feeling that most people aren't where they want to be, and it even takes a little bit of like more than just self-reflection. It's understanding, I guess it is self-reflection, understanding where you sit in the world may not necessarily be where you want to be. What's a less complicated way of saying this without sounding like I'm talking in circles? Basically, what I'm trying to say is, if society tells us that having a big house, having a new car, having a job that pays six figures, being able to go out to eat and drink with your friends, 5 nights a week is like the goal, and we internalize that in a lot of ways, then we're not living in the way that we want to live. We're living in the way that society is telling us is the right way to live. And it's kind of a cliche to say, society wants this, and like, but our culture does have a huge impact on our values, just the way that our values have an impact on our culture. It's like cyclical. And right now, we're in this stage where we're not really writing as much. We're not thinking, in terms of like metacognitive. We're not thinking about our thinking. We're not thinking about what we're doing necessarily. We're kind of just going through the motions. And at that point, we're letting the people who do think, which oftentimes are the millionaires and billionaires, the heads of companies who their job is to shape culture through marketing and advertising and PR, we're letting them decide what our culture is. Instead of it being a ground up approach, it's a top down approach through like government policies, through corporate action. All of these kind of things are really shaping all of us in huge ways, and I don't know if we're necessarily aware of that. And the only way we can even begin to fight back and figure out what we want and who we are is to figure out what we want and who we are and change the culture. Because anytime that we come up with some new way of looking at things and share that with others and encourage other people to do the same, we're taking back the power from the people in charge and putting it back in our hands. And these are small things that we can do to kind of get us